Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove, and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation I received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, why do my joints hurt way more now that I'm stronger and lifting heavier? A few reasons. One, you might not be warming up properly. All right. So you have to remember that when you go to the gym, just because you're stronger now, you still need to make sure that you are warming up accordingly. Okay. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say you're doing chest. Even though you can bench press 135 for 15 reps, you don't just get under the bar and start bench pressing 135 for 15 reps. You do a very gradual increase. So you can do, let's say, 15 reps with just the bar, which is 40 pounds, right? Then maybe you throw in some dynamic stretches right before you get under that 135 to start. All right. So you have to monitor your strength because even though you yourself are getting stronger over the months, over the years, over the decades in the gym, you still want to make sure that you're warming up with a weight that you can easily handle for, God, 30 reps if you wanted to. You don't even have to count that as a working set, just count it as a warm up set. That's it. Okay. So I talked about this last week with the way that I warm up clients, and we use a training tool called pyramiding. Okay. So we start off with light weights and we gradually increase the weight with each ascending set. And that's a great way to warm up the muscle bellies in addition to warming up the joints, the tendons, and the ligaments. All right. So that's one reason that could possibly be the reason why you're feeling the pain in the joints. Another reason, your joints aren't having enough time to catch up to your muscle bellies. This is common too. I see a lot of, well, women too, but mostly men who, when they start putting on a lot of size, their joints aren't strong enough to support the muscle bellies. So they start getting pain in their elbow, they start getting pain in their hips, they start getting pain in their knees. So again, it comes down to making sure that your joints are nice and lubricated. A good way to do that, pick up some glucosamine powder. Okay, that's a great supplement. It does work. I've used it in the past. It usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks to kick in, though. So be patient, but it does really help release that synovial fluid into the joints, and it makes the joints just feel more lubricated. All right. But again, you want to make sure that when you are in the gym, you're paying close attention to your form and technique. So one thing you have to also make sure, because this could be another reason as to why you're having this problem, is you never lock out your joints. Okay. And I'll tell you right now, I see a lot of people that lock out their joints and I don't think they know they're doing it. And a lot of people do it on the last few reps when they're struggling. So I'll give you an example of a bench press. Someone's bench pressing, they're doing 135, whatever, they're getting to their 15th rep. Those last 2 or 3 reps are really hard for them. So they might take a little pause at the top of the movement, right? Problem is when they take that pause at the top of the movement, they lock out their joints. They lock out their elbows. That puts unnecessary strain on the elbows, okay, which also puts unnecessary strain on the tendons. So we don't want to do that. I don't mind someone taking a quick breather at the top before they go back down, but keep those elbows slightly bent. Same thing with the squat. I see a lot of people when they do barbell squats, they come all the way up and they lock out their knees. Terrible idea. All right. Over time, that shit's going to catch up with you. So you never want to lock out your joints. You always want to keep your joints slightly bent. Why? Well, if your knees and your elbows and your hips are slightly bent doing movements, you're keeping tension on the muscles, not the joints, not the tendons, not the ligaments, right? So it's going to be one of those three reasons as to why you're experiencing that pain. My recommendation, though, pick up some glucosamine anyway, because if you are starting to lift some heavy weight, I mean, I use glucosamine. I find it's really helpful. It does help with the joints, but you want to make sure that you're pyramiding properly. You want to make sure that you're executing good form so you're not locking out those joints, and just really make sure that everything feels nice and loose in the gym. Because if those joints are feeling like really stiff and you're having knee pain or elbow pain, you're asking for an injury. You're asking for tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, patellofemoral syndrome, whatever it may be. You could get it just by not training correctly. So make sure that you're warmed up properly. All right. And if you watch any of my training videos over the years, you'll see that even though like I squat 315, I don't jump into the squat rack and start squatting 315. I'll start off with the 135 because that's light for me. Then I'll go to, a one, maybe I'll go to 195 and then I'll go to 225 and then I'll go to 255. I go by how I feel. Okay. I don't just jump up right to 315. All right. So I really pay attention to how my joints and my tendons, my ligaments, and my muscles are feeling before lifting weights that I know are going to be more detrimental to my results. All right. Next question. Nick, is there a point where adding more exercises actually makes your physique worse instead of better? Well, I mean, if you mean adding more volume to the workout itself, like you're just adding more and more volume, not necessarily. I mean, you don't want to be in the gym for 3 or 4 hours. I'm a firm believer in rotating exercises in and out of your training sequence. So, for example, if you're doing, let's say you've been doing a shoulder workout that starts with barbell military press, and you've been doing that for the past 6 months, why not change that up for a seated dumbbell shoulder press just for, another 6 months? Take something out of rotation, bring something in. And I think everyone should do that because one way, first of all, it's a good way to avoid becoming stagnant with your workouts. And you can also go for progressive overload because if you're constantly doing the same exercises, it becomes a little difficult to actually increase your weight in the gym. And also, you might notice that you become stagnant with your results. So trying different movements that utilize more planes and ranges of motion can help propel those results and get you back on track within the gym with your physique and your health and your fitness goals. Okay, so don't be afraid to switch out exercises every so often. And I'm a firm believer in doing that. I'll do it usually every few months, especially if I'm dealing with an injury. Like if I'm dealing with a nagging shoulder injury, I might switch that like barbell military press for the dumbbell shoulder press, or maybe I'll do some dumbbell front raises. So I'll give the pressing movement a bit of a break with the compound, switch it up to nice lateral movement, and it usually helps. Okay. Same thing with the back. If I'm dealing with some lower back strain, I might take out T-bar rows and bent over barbell rows for a few weeks because that does put some strain on my lumbar region. Just take them out for a few weeks, put in some vertical cable rows. Maybe I'll put in some seal rows with the dumbbells on the incline bench. Give my lower back a bit of a break, get back to it in a month or two. All right. So don't be afraid to switch out exercises. But to answer your question, more does not equate to better. Okay. So I think what you meant is just adding more exercises into your workouts. Um, General rule of thumb, for my clients and my workouts, I try to get about 40 sets in for a workout. And that's even if we're working a single muscle group. I know people, well, that's overtraining, but don't forget, I'm including warm-up sets there. So we're not doing 40 working sets. We're probably doing about 20 working sets and about 20 warm-up sets. But that should be sufficient, okay? And that way, you get a good workout in. My recommendation is to always pick, if you're doing a certain muscle group, like say chest, for example, pick at least two compound presses and one isolateral movement, which is more of a definer. So you always want to build your house and paint your house. So like an incline barbell press, flat barbell press, and then maybe you can go for some low incline dumbbell flies. Okay, to me, that'd be perfect because you're working both pec major and pec minor. All right. And that's the bare minimum, I would say, because ideally you want to make sure that you're getting the exercises that help build your house and the exercises that help paint your house. Okay. So you want to refine, define, and grow the muscles that you train in the gym. Okay. So don't think just keep adding more exercises for the sake of adding more exercises. Do it in a strategic fashion. Take some exercises out, put some exercises in. Just make sure that your workouts make sense. Okay. Because if they don't make sense, you're not going to get results. Okay. Bodybuilding question. And Nick, why do some bodybuilders look huge in clothes but not very impressive on the stage? Because big does not equate to better. It doesn't. Some of the biggest guys end up out of the top five at bodybuilding shows. There are guys that I've beat who outweighed me by like 30 pounds in the overalls. And it's because they're not conditioned. All right. So bigger does not necessarily mean better. And there's a lot of people that look better in clothes. And then when they take off their shirt, a lot of guys is like, whoa, holding a lot of fat there. Okay. So for me, I've always been someone, I don't like to wear tight clothes. Just prefer to wear a little bit things that are a little bit more loose on my body, but I feel very comfortable taking off my shirt. And because I know carry lean muscle mass. I don't have a gut. And I'm not knocking anyone that does have a gut. It's just to me, I never wanted to bulk where I'm just big. Like big arms. I never wanted to just have big arms. I wanted to have veins in my arms. I wanted to have definition in my arms. So I'd rather have smaller arms that just look more defined and refined again. Okay. So that's the physique that I've always aimed for. The guys I always idolized were the guys in the 80s, guys in the 70s, those bodybuilders, Arnold's generation, Tom Platz, Lee Haney. Those guys to me, those were the perfect physiques. They were lean, they were hard, they were conditioned. Now, not a knock on today's bodybuilders, but I wouldn't want to look like any of those guys today because they're too big. And to me, it doesn't look good. So that's something, it's not a body that I've ever aspired to look like. And if you look at any of my contest photos, I've always been one of the smaller guys, but I've always been known for my conditioning. Very low body fat, very lots of vascularity, right? So muscles that pop, and that's what I've been known for. And that takes a lot of discipline with your diet and your training and your supplementation to get there. A lot of people don't want to do that. So I'm not saying that everyone should walk around stage ready, but if you train in the gym, you should look like you train in the gym, even with your shirt off. And if you don't, then you're doing something wrong, right? So if you're someone who's, and I mean, if you're training like a bodybuilder, I should say, sorry, I should specify that. So if you're training like a bodybuilder, eating like a bodybuilder, you should look like a bodybuilder, all right? So you don't have to look like Ronnie Coleman, but you should look like, hey, yeah, this guy or this woman lifts, okay? Because if you are training to be a bodybuilder per se, and I don't mean get on stage, but you just want to sculpt your body, if you've been doing this for a few years, you should look like the part. And if you don't, go back to the drawing board and see what you're doing wrong. Maybe it's your training, maybe it's your diet. It's most likely a combination of the two. All right. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. I see it quite a bit. I see it with guys all the time. They look big. They've got big arms, no definition. And that to me has never been a look that I've ever aspired to look like. I've always really tried my best to aspire to look like those physiques from the 70s and 80s. So I really liked the way that those physiques looked. Not only did they look good, they just looked healthy. Okay. So when you have a certain image that you want to portray as a bodybuilder, it really helps because that's a goal. Like, I want to look like that person. What did that person do as far as training, diet, supplementation? No, I'm not going to look exactly like that person. We're different genetics, but at the same time, I'm going to train and eat like that person. Okay, because that's my goal. I want to look like that. I don't want to just eat everything and get big. Okay, so bigger does not equate to better. Okay. Nick, how important is exercise order? Does it actually matter what movements you start with? Yeah, I am a firm believer that exercise order is important when it comes to training. Your workouts do have to make some sense. And I've always talked about how a workout should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So for example, let's go back to that chest workout. I would not advise anyone to start with like say dumbbell flies or cable flies because that's more of a defining exercise. It doesn't make sense to me anyway to define the muscle before you build the muscle. So I always try to front load my compound lifts at the beginning of a chest workout, shoulder workout, back workout, arm workout, and so on, leg workout. So for example, for a chest workout, that'd be a barbell press of some sort, whether it's a low incline barbell press or a high incline dumbbell press or a flat barbell press or flat dumbbell press, although I don't recommend starting with flat presses. The press movement would be before the fly movement, okay? Because you want to utilize the majority of your energy, okay? So at the beginning of your workout, you're going to be the strongest towards those mass builders because it's going to help you grow. And then towards the tail end of the workout, let's say the last 15, 20 minutes, then focus on the defining movements. Okay, because at that point you don't need to use heavy weights. When I get to my flies at the end of a chest workout, I'm lucky if I'm doing 50s. I know if I started my workout with those flies, I'd probably be doing 75s. But for what reason? My goal is to continue to build the chest. So I'm going to utilize all my energy towards the bench press first. Then I'll do some dumbbell presses. And then I'll go on to some flies. And after that, I feel like, wow, my chest really, really feels the workout today. All right. So you want to make sure the workout makes sense. I've always talked about how to me meal order is not very important, but the exercise sequencing is very important. So when I'm working with clients, I do mix up their workouts from time to time, but the sequence has to make sense. I've talked about this before. So I'll never just give someone, let's say we're doing a shoulder workout. I'm not a big fan of doing dumbbell lateral raises, these guys here, before a shoulder press. I like to get my presses out of the way first. Okay, that's just me though. I find that works really well for most people. It's a good way to avoid injury. Do your presses first, go to your raises second, maybe go to some rear delts, and that way you're not killing your rotator cuffs. Okay, so it does help to have a general understanding of anatomy and physiology when you're putting together a training program. And that's why it can be so beneficial when you work with an online coach that can structure a program for you. And then you can ask. I've got people that ask, hey, why did you put it in this order? And I'll explain it to them. Most people don't ask. They don't care. They just follow what I tell them to do. But to me, it is like a story. Your workout should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to make sense. Okay. So you can't just put a bunch of random exercises together and hope for the best. Because what's going to happen is you'll get some results, but there's also a good chance you might get injury. Okay. So you got to be careful with how you train. Because if you're injured, you can't train. If you can't train, you're not going to get results. Okay. Okay. Nick, why do some people build insane legs from squats while others barely grow at all? Genetics. Genetics, and also, this one's a big one too, physical limitations. Not every squat is the same. I can give three people squats. I had three people in my group class earlier today. Give them all squats. Even though I teach it a certain way, I don't teach the conventional squat. I do a little bit different stance with my squats. They're all different. Some people are taller, some people are shorter. Some people have been training with me for 10 years. Some people have only been training for 2 years. So the experience matters. Some people have physical limitations where they have maybe a hip problem, they have a back problem, they have a knee problem. So that's going to affect their squat. They can all squat, but some do it better than others. And some have a stronger mind to muscle connection than others. So just because you give 3 or 4 people the same exercise does not mean they're going to get the exact same results. No. Same thing with a diet. Just because you give 4 people the same diet does not mean they're going to get the same results. So you have to find what works for your body. And what I've learned over the years is not every exercise is for every single person. There are some exercises that I don't do with clients, not because they can't do them, but because I'm like, you know what? Your body mechanics just don't work for this exercise. It just looks awkward. It doesn't look like you're engaging the muscles properly. So let me give you this alternative instead. And again, working with an experienced coach, they can help troubleshoot that. Doesn't mean that we're never going to go back to that exercise that you're unable to do properly right now. But right now, let's start to build your stabilizers. Let's focus on getting, let's say it's a bent over barbell row, and the person just can't get low to the floor. I'll give them maybe a vertical cable row. And that way they don't have to worry about getting low to the floor. But we're still working that upper back. Or if we're doing reverse grip, we're still working those lower lats. And then over time, I might bring it back to a bent over barbell row. But for now, vertical cable row, maybe I'll throw in some T-bar rows so they are doing some bent over movements. So it's important to structure your workout so that you're still building those muscles and you're still strengthening your stabilizers because that's important, especially if you're going to do free weights. So to go back to the squat, not everyone needs to squat. I know everyone says that's the best exercise. You need to do it. It's worked wonders for me over the years. If you look at any of my contest photos, a lot of people comment on my legs, and I attribute that to squats. Not heavy squats, but squats going parallel to the floor because I don't believe in going ass to grass. And that's another thing too. A lot of people will tell you got to go all the way down. I've never gone all the way down on a squat ever. I go parallel to the floor and I've developed great quads from that, great hamstrings and glutes. So is that my genetics? Potentially. Is it the way I squat? Because I don't do the conventional squat. I go toes out, maybe. But whatever it is, it's worked for me. I have no hip pain, no back pain, feel good after a squat workout. It's hard as hell, but it works. Will that work for everyone? No. But I'll teach it to the person I'm training and I'll say, okay, I want you to try this. And if it's not working, I'm not afraid to try something else with them. I'm like, this is not working. Let's get you some hack squats instead. Let's get you some ball wall squats, or let's start you with some barbell front squats. So it's important to be able to assess the person's physique, the body mechanics, and understand, is this working or not working? And if it's not working, get it out of there, put something else in as a replacement. And again, don't be afraid, maybe a few months from the road down the road or a few years down the road, try it again. Okay. So just because something is said to be the king of all exercises, like the squats, the bench press, the deadlifts, does not necessarily mean it is. Okay. Just because it works for one person does not mean it's going to work for the next. All right. Okay. We've got a few more questions here. Nick, should I still be doing cardio if I'm trying to grow new muscle? Yes, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in keeping cardio in year round. I've talked about this time and time again. I've never taken cardio out of my program. I know there's a lot of bodybuilders out there and social media experts that will claim that too much cardio, you're going to burn muscle. I don't disagree with that. But what I am saying is if you're doing low intensity, somewhat moderate to longer duration cardio, like 20, 30 minutes in the off season, I think that's great because again, it's just going to keep your heart healthy. You have to remember when you're weight training, yeah, you're doing some work for your heart, but not really because you're doing a set, you rest, a set, a rest, or even if you're circuit training, you're still not getting your heart rate up to the same degree as if you were doing some cardio, steady state cardio. So it's really important that you take care of your heart health, especially as you get older. So for me, what I do is, well, I walk to and from my gym usually about 4 times a day. That's about a 15-minute walk there and back. So I'm doing about an hour of walking. I don't walk slow, I speed walk. So an hour of walking outside, and I always go 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes post-workout on the treadmill again. So I'm getting in at least 80 minutes to 90 minutes of walking a day easily. Okay. On top of all the training I do with clients. So I'm getting in lots of steps. I've never used a step counter, but I'm getting lots of steps. So I think cardio actually can help your physique and it will also help your performance in the gym. Because again, if you've watched some of my training videos and you see me doing all those drop sets, I don't rest very long. All right, I don't even rest very long between sets. And I attribute that to having good cardiovascular health. My resting heart rate as of today at 40 years old is 36 beats per minute. That's to me, that's fantastic because that means the less work my heart has to do, the better. All right. So I've always wanted to keep my resting heart rate under 40 beats per minute. It might go up as I get older, but I'm going to try my best to keep it low. Okay. So heart health is very important, especially as you age. So you should not neglect your cardio and don't listen to these bodybuilders or social media experts who say you're going to go into a catabolic state if you do cardio. Listen, I'm not telling you to go for a 2 hour run. I'm just saying get in at least 30 minutes of something a day. Could be swimming, could be biking, could be walking. You need to take care of your health long term. You can't just focus on building muscle, right? Because what's all that muscle going to have? Seriously, think about this. You're going to have this big, all this muscle, great looking physique, but you might have cardiorespiratory disease. You die at 50. Was it worth it? Probably not. It's the same thing I tell my clients who are ridiculously rich. We're talking multimillionaires here, and I have quite a few of them on my roster. I say, all that money is not going to do well for you if you're dead in the ground at 55 years old. And they understand that. So they're like, yeah, no, I have to take care of my health. If I want to live a long term time, and I want to have good health, I've got to put myself in the best position possible. All right. So, yeah, no one can guarantee that you're going to live tomorrow, no matter how healthy you are, but you want to put yourself in the best position possible, right? And in order to do that, you want to make sure you're doing your cardio, you want to make sure you're doing your weights, you want to make sure that you're following a fairly clean diet so that you are healthy and fit. So that if you do get some type of disease or cancer of some sort, that your body's ability to fight it off is stronger and your odds are better because your immune system is stronger. All right. So don't neglect cardio. That is a huge mistake. And I'm only asking for 20, 30 minutes a day. Really, I don't think that's that much to ask for a 24-hour day. All right. Okay. Um, okay, two more questions here. Nick, how do you mentally stay motivated to train when progress slows down after years of lifting? Yeah, so I've touched on motivation quite a bit these last few weeks on my YouTube shorts, my Instagram reels. I wrote about it in my blog this past Friday. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out today. It's on foreverfitperformance.com. I talked about how motivation is a terrible strategy to utilize if you're trying to get results with your health and your physique. It is because motivation doesn't last. It doesn't. Nobody's motivated 24 hours a day. It doesn't happen. Okay. You might wake up feeling motivated, or you might have a double shot of espresso and now you feel motivated to go to the gym, or you may have watched some YouTube videos and now you feel motivated to go work out, but it doesn't last. And so you can't rely on motivation full time. You have to try to develop good habits. Okay. And when you start to develop these good habits, it's just autopilot. It's not even like, oh, I got to do this because I want to have my six pack, or I got to do this because I want to build bigger arms. It's like, no, this is my day-to-day operation. This is how I function. It's almost like you're a machine. I'll use yesterday as an example. I worked 10 hours in a row on the floor. I have a trainer that's away right now. So I worked 10 hours straight, no break. The only time I ate was when people were late. All right. So lucky for me, I had a few people late, down a quick meal, right back up on the floor again. So after those 10 hours on the floor, I go back home. I still have some meals to prep for the morning. I still have some emails to answer. So to me, it's very autopilot. I'm like, oh, got to cook my meals now. Got to prepare for tomorrow. It's not, oh, I got to go home and I'm going to open up a bottle of wine. I've never done that ever. The thought of that to me is just it's appalling. I'm like, why the hell would I do that? So it's just trying to build on those habits. And it didn't happen overnight. I didn't get into prepping all my meals just like that. It took time. But now that I do it on a weekly basis, no, on a daily basis with some of my meals, especially now because I'm eating a lot of food, it's just autopilot. It's like, no, that has to get done. It's just like my place. My place is always clean. I'm like, oh, I got to pick that up. It's dirty, right? Got to vacuum, got to mop the floor, got to feed the pet plants, whatever it may be. It's just, you just do it. Okay. And it takes a while to develop that type of mindset. But the reason I feel that I have that mindset and a lot of my clients have that mindset is I attribute it to the weight training, because weight training does build discipline. Bodybuilding builds discipline. Okay. It teaches you how to stay disciplined with your diet, how to stay consistent with your training. Okay. How to work hard, be confident. All right. And that translates to every other area of life, whether it's in business or your personal life. So you have to think beyond motivation. And I've been on this crusade the last 2 weeks. Honestly, like check out my socials. You'll see I've been really, really like bad mouthing motivation. So you can't rely on motivation. You just can't. You've got to focus on building habits. And the only way to build those habits is consistency, day in, day out, repeated motions. And that's how you're going to do it. That's how you build a skill set, right? Day in, day out. If you're going to school to get a degree, day in, day out, you study, you learn, you take the test, you pass, you get a career. So same thing with your body, same thing with business. You have to do it day in, day. Okay. If you're looking for motivation, that is a big mistake because motivation is going to come and go. So you have to find something else. And my recommendation is try to focus on building better habits. And it goes back to that saying again, and I've talked about this in the past, that it takes 21 days to develop a habit. I truly believe that because when I'm working with a new client and I'm saying giving them a new diet plan, it's usually that third week where things just click for them. Some people, it doesn't click and then they fall off the wagon, takes a little longer. But most people, if they're serious about getting results, like, no, Nick, you know what? I need to transfer my physique. I'm getting too fat here. I feel slow. I feel like crap. I'm not confident in my body. Those are the people that get it. And by week three, it just clicks. Everything's in place. The training's in place, the diet's in place, everything's good to go. All right. Because there will never be a good time. There's never going to be a time that's not stressful. There's always going to be chaos going on in your life at some point. So stop waiting for the perfect time to get on the diet or to get back in the gym. Do it now. All right. And learn to be consistent and build on those habits because when things get really chaotic at work or things get really stressful at home, you're going to stay consistent with your training and diet because you've already built those habits. They're installed in you. You can't break them. They're there. Okay, to me, not meal prepping or to me, not going to the gym would, it's almost like not breathing. Like, oh no, this is what I do. All right. And it's good for my body. It's good for my mindset. So I strongly advise you to stop relying on motivation and start focusing more on the consistency factor. All right. Last question. Okay. Nick, can eating too clean actually make a diet harder to stick to long term? Ooh, that's a good question. I think it depends on the individual. I really do. Because I have some people who, like, I'll be honest, there are people I work with who have severe eating disorders, whether they're binge eaters. I have someone on my roster right now who's a recovering anorexic person. So they suffered from anorexia for 3 years. So to them, the portions I'm giving them now is outrageous. But to me, I'm like, this is nothing. Like, you're still eating like a bird. But because of that unhealthy relationship this person has with food, when I say, okay, I want you to have half a cup of rice, like, oh God, I wouldn't even consume half a cup of rice in a day. To the average person, like, what? How do you survive? But to someone who has an eating disorder or who looks at food and has a really poor relationship with food, it's very difficult to get their mind around, no, you have to eat this. It's good for you. It's going to help you. It's going to fuel you. You're going to feel better. You're going to perform better in the gym. And it's actually going to help you lose body fat and build muscle. So teaching someone that who has a poor relationship with food can be very difficult to do. I have some people who are closet eaters. I've had people who are binge eaters. And so what I try to teach people is rather than just put a diet plan together for someone, I really try to teach people how food can actually add numerous benefits to our life besides the social components. So it's going to make you feel better, as I said. It's going to fuel your workouts. You're going to think more clearly, right? And you just have to make sure you're plugging in the proper nutrients. So rather than just give someone a diet plan, I really try my best to teach people how to eat properly. And I don't mean that it has to be chicken and rice 7 times a day. I just mean how to eat properly so that they feel better. And that's what's most important, that you're healthy. Yes, everyone wants to look good. I get it. But at the same time, it's more important that you feel good, all right? And that you have energy. Because I can tell you from someone who's done so, I don't even know how many bodybuilding shows, when you're depleting and you're on those diets, which are not healthy diets, by the way. And I always tell anyone who works with me for a bodybuilding prep, this is not healthy. There's nothing about this that's healthy. We're going to try to do it in the healthiest way possible, but it's not healthy. Okay, so we're not going to be following this diet for the rest of your life. You're depleted, you feel like crap, you're not sleeping properly, your strength goes down in the gym, you have no libido, so on, so on, so on. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are following a nutritional plan that is sustainable and one that fits your lifestyle. Okay, so when you ask that question, it's a tricky question because there are some people I work with who I don't give any cheat meals to. Not because I'm like, no cheat meals for you, but because I know the cheat meal is going to trigger them. And so I have some people who they've even said to me, they're like, yeah, if I do 2 slices of pizza, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole and I'm going to have the whole entire pizza. And then I'm going to have some cake and ice cream afterwards. And then I might go have a few drinks at the bar later on. So they know that those are trigger foods. So they stay away from them. And I'll say, no problem. maybe instead of having a cheat meal, have one of your regular meals that's on your plan, but don't worry about portion control. Or maybe you like a certain food on your plan. Maybe like a lot of people like peanut butter, almond butter. I put peanut butter and almond butter, unless you're allergic, on pretty much everyone's plan. They love it. Like, have some extra in your oatmeal. Go crazy. If that to you gives you a sense of normalcy that you're off the diet for one meal, do it. I have other people who are like me who pretty much stay on the diet year round. And that's not because I have an unhealthy relationship with food. It's just I don't crave junk food. I'm not someone who needs to have a cookie. I don't really crave much sugar. I mean, my biggest, if you will say, cheat meal is like a glass of scotch I have like once or twice a week. That's it. And that's all I want. Like, and it's not even because I crave it. It's usually because I'm just being social. So that's me though. So not everyone has to eat like I do. But I can tell you right now that just because you're eating clean does not mean that you're going to get poor results. So anyone who said, "Oh, you got to eat big to get big," again, not necessarily true. Just because you're going to go to McDonald's and down three quarter pounders, you're going to get big, but you're going to get big in your belly. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're using the nutrients to fuel your body correctly. All right, so rather than have those three quarter pounders, you're better off having like a nice grilled 8 ounce piece of salmon with maybe a cup of jasmine rice and some asparagus and maybe a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. That to me is way better because now you're getting your healthy fats, your complex carbs, your fatty proteins in the case of salmon, which are still great because the omega-3 fats are great for you. Okay, if you don't want to have a fatty protein, you can have lean protein, chicken breast, turkey breast, cod, but you want to make sure that you're using your nutrients that are going to help your body. Okay, and I'm not just talking about the aesthetics. I'm talking about how you're going to feel, how you're going to recover, how you're going to sleep, how you're going to think. Okay, so you really have to kind of think about that when you think about a relationship with food and developing a good relationship with food. I'm not saying don't go out and have a burger and fries or have a big bowl of pasta. Do it. But again, moderation, once a week, in my opinion. You don't need to have it every day. And if you do, then you might have a poor relationship with food. For a lot of people who say they're foodies, I'm like, okay, that's great. But if you are someone who is obese, or you have some type of health issue that's because of poor nutritional habits, you shouldn't be a foodie, period. You shouldn't. If you're type 2 diabetic, it's because of your diet, you're not a foodie. You got someone who's got a poor relationship with food. Okay. So we need to fix that. And sometimes the trainer can't fix that. Sometimes me as a coach, I can't fix that. Sometimes I will refer out. I'll tell someone, you might want to see a psychologist, but I would talk to a therapist because it could be something that's deeper on the inside that's causing that. All right. But whenever I work with someone who I can tell they've got some poor eating habits, potentially a poor relationship with food, I will try my best to help them and steer them in the right direction. And if I feel like it's out of my scope of practice, I'll definitely refer out. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, May the 25th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, your workout program, supplements you're currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting the YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. If you find my videos to be educational, I really do appreciate you liking and subscribing to the channel. It means that what I'm doing here is working and it's helping educate people on what to do in the gym and what to do outside the gym when it comes to their diet. And like I said, I'm always here to help anyone who's interested in online coaching, potentially in-house personal training coaching as well here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm always looking to work with anyone who needs my assistance. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.